300 miles is the dream that all of these skaters wish to get to.
The whole goal, the holy grail of this is 300 miles.
100.
But 24 hours is a long time, so.
How do these people find this mental fortitude and the strength somehow beyond physical, attachment to do this? I don't know.
Somebody just kind of discovered that, taking their sister's roller skate wheels and putting it on a 2x4 was a lot of fun. And then one day when I moved to Miami Beach, I started seeing all these people commuting around on longboard skateboards. I had never really seen them before. Look at that big ass skateboard, these big old wheels. It was completely foreign and strange, but I was like, what the heck are those? I remember that's when I decided, I'm gonna get one. And then it was like instant nostalgia, like brought you right back to a kid again, those times of just like picking your board up, you barely knew how to ride it and you're just having fun.
It's like a glow in your body, like a happiness when you get on your board. You're out there with all your buddies and everything and just really appreciating what's going on at the time. Just being happy and stoked up.
Stoke is that natural emotion that's inexplicable until you really do any kind of action sport.
I don't know that I can totally explain it, but there's just something about it when you get on a skateboard.
Such an adrenaline rush.
You're just floating a couple inches above the ground, in a smooth asphalt, and you're just kind of, and you get lost within yourself.
And you really find it on a skateboard. When you're going long miles, it's really what keeps you pumping and keeps you going.
Turned me on to the whole thought of testing yourself as far as like, how long can I push this longboard for? Let me see how long I can push it. And somewhere throughout there is where I started discovering that there was other people doing it, And I started discovering there was these, races out there that people were doing, and there was long ones, and there was 3-day events and 24 hours and stuff like that.
It's one big family.
Everyone's just super pumped and excited, and there's like a great energy.
Everyone playing together, having fun, and then like the next day we're like racing against each other, seeing who can go the fastest.
We're all about creating a sustainable culture and creating races and opportunities for youths, for adults, and our #1 event has become the most outlandish event, and the event that nobody would have ever thought that even 5 people would do, It's called the UltraSkate. It's 24 hours of skating.
We'd all love to get out and skate across states and skate across the country if we could, but the UltraSkate is this time when you can actually kind of do that because, depending on your mileage, it's like you could basically be skating from Miami to Orlando, but you're doing it, in one day.
It really is that Mount Everest that every skateboarder or longboarder around the world has grown to look towards and try to do it for that sense of accomplishment.
There's a kind of like a distinct thing that all makes us how we are. It's like you're one part athlete, you're one part free spirit, and one part skater,
I had a movie called Grind in my dad's car, and I would watch it every single time we got in the car, and I just wanted to be a skateboarder when I grew up. I thought it was so cool, you're like hot, you could get the cool girlfriend, and you just travel around all year, and that was like the life, and I was like, yeah, I want to do that.
I started skateboarding right about when I got in high school because I was pretty small. I weighed like 98 pounds, 5 foot nothing. And I used to play sports, but once you get in high school and you're that size, sports are kind of out of the question. So I got a skateboard for Christmas, and that was that.
I really liked it because you see more of the nature around. It's a bit like cycling, but I prefer skating.
I started surfing in high school, and my friends had longboards in college, and I borrowed one of my friends for the first semester. Then after that, I was just like, I need to get my own board.
I want to do something different. I'm 56 years old, and a few years ago I had cancer. My son Eric had done the UltraSkate the year before, so I thought, let me ask him about that, see if that's something I could do. I'd been on a skateboard before, but skating 24 hours did not seem like a realistic thing. But I asked him, and he said, yeah, you can do it, but you can't stop. That's the key. So I said, all right, this will be my fundraiser.
Before the UltraSkate, you look around and you say, who's going to be the top dogs? And you don't know. but then when you actually go out and you perform in a way that impresses everybody, that's all it takes to be included. You don't have to be like anybody that they are. You don't have to be the same as them. As long as you like skating and you love skating, then they'll take you. None of us would have been friends if it wasn't for skateboarding.
There's no day you do not think about the UltraSkate, because not a lot of people who can say I skateboarded for 24 hours straight without stopping.
But just testing yourself, you know, skateboarding for 24 hours, it's kind of crazy, you know, to just know that, like, once I start that race, I was gonna stay up, stay standing, and never slow down from a certain pace, you know, and just try to go at it. A Seattle native is the guy who started the 24-hour race. This is where James Peters, you know, lived, and you know, he skated to work.
I would just see how reasonable it was to skate to work, and that was like 10 miles at the time. And like tried it out and was like, yeah, it was pretty easy. And then just kept on pushing it. Kind of got used to getting out and going, no matter what the elements.
Kind of goes with how the people are here. You know, they're into you know, the kind of green movement, transportation, outdoor kind of living.
And the reason I thought about it was because of the Seattle to Portland thing. Seattle to Portland is a 204-mile bike ride with like 10,000 people who bike it. And I thought, wow, I wonder, you know, I don't think I can do that in a day, but I'm curious.
So he did that on his longboard, and then so people were like, oh, that's pretty cool. And they were like, how long is somebody like, that's gotta be like some kind of record. So that's kind of how he brought up the idea of like, well, I wonder how far you can go. And so he goes, well, the set will be 24 hours. He goes, I'll do it at Green Lake, because he lives right there. And so he started it there. So.
James Peters packs 4 wheels. He's attempting a world record by skateboarding the distance of almost 8 marathons.
And the idea there was I was raising money for cancer research. The distance thing was somewhat secondary, but the whole idea was let's see how far I can go in 24 hours.
And then from there, it got kind of blew up, it got big, and now it's like international. They do it in Europe. Free-spirited, just like having fun. It's competitive, but we're all still good friends and stuff. It's like working at fish market, huh? Tossing fish. Hey! And at the time, a man named Paul Ken, a Canadian, was the guy who had the world record. It was 250 miles is what he had set it at.
I think that record stood for a couple years, if not several years, because that really set this new bar, you know, this 250 that nobody could hit. And then Andy showed up, and Andy just like changed the whole game.
So, you know, we were of course all gunning like, yeah, let's go, let's get 250, we got this. So. What did suck more than anything was the weather out there in the Pacific Northwest. I think we got rained on for like 20 out of the 24 hours.
It was like a bike path with a few guys out there and like a little table with an umbrella and stuff, and people freezing their butts off riding down every time people come through with a lap, you know?
It's funny because, you know, you go with all the thought like, yeah, and then you realize like, oh wow, no, this is hard. This isn't easy. You know, you do the math and you're like, okay, 10 miles an hour for 24 hours, I could break this record. You know, and then somewhere about, usually by nightfall, you start realizing, oh, this was a bad mistake.
And Andy ends up winning the race out of nowhere.
I heard about this guy who came from Florida, and you know, he just skated all night in the rain and the cold. I needed to think about getting him on the team. I started it out of necessity. I wanted to go skate, didn't have a board. I knew I could build one. Started meeting people, putting my stuff up online, and there was an interest. My boards were different, and it just grew from there. Andy, he is a stud, a skate stud. His energy is infectious. Several designs have come from his requests and him thinking about how to make a better board.
This was my model, I guess, right?
Yeah, it's the factory model of your deck.
Of La Machina.
I combine this board with that board.
I disliked having to switch boards.
To get a better pump or push.
I'd do, you know, a couple hours on this guy, and then I want to pump a little bit, so I'd go to this guy and go kind of back and forth.
Be more efficient and lighter and faster.
So Scotty came up with the idea of taking the GT and gave it its own personal touch, giving it a nice shape, and put the brackets on it, and it became a world-breaking machine at that point, you know.
He's driven quite a few of my designs.
It was the right recipe. It was what make it go, you know. Give take from a builder to a rider, you know, and it was like back and forth, the reciprocal of it. Like, yes, this works, yes, and then it would be like a little something added to it.
Or no, I broke that.
Or yeah, that's true too. Let's bring it to Miami. Let's do it in some nice weather.
He decided he needed to move that event to Florida.
I want to bring this 24-hour race over here, you know. It's kind of been underground. It's over there in Seattle. And I was kind of, you know, doing a little bit in the sense of like, I think I could break the world record, but I need it like in my hometown.
I go, Andy, if you break the world record, this is good media exposure. It's good stuff.
The tough part was finding a course here, because you need some kind of track that brings you around constantly in a set environment where you can keep track of the riders, keep track of their laps, support crew, taking breaks.
I go, Andy, I found a space. We take a drive to the Everglades out in the boonies, Shark Valley.
I was like, let's go take a look at it. And it was like an 8-mile loop, this big, huge 8-mile loop. And we did one lap around it, and we were covered in mosquitoes. You could just see alligators just hanging out on the bank along the trail. And I was like, there's no way we can do this here.
I could just see the headlines in the Herald and in the New York Times. Long distance skater gets eaten by gators or something like that.
We couldn't find a place.
What if we go to the Homestead Speedway? And he's like, the NASCAR track?
Like the NASCAR track. I was like, they're gonna let a bunch of skaters want to come in there for 24 hours and skate on their track. I was like, are you kidding me?
You know what, Andy? If we don't ask, we're never gonna get it.
Somebody that knew somebody and got us in on there.
We get the meeting set, we head over to the track. We're in the waiting room and both of us are nervous. We walk in, we're in a big conference room. Me and Andy at one end, and all of a sudden Al Garcia walks in and he sits at the other end of the table.
Brought our longboards, you know, I tried explaining the whole history of, you know, the UltraSkate, 24 hours. And he goes, no, yeah, he goes, my son rides longboards, you know?
Andy's eyes like lit up.
The minute he told me, he goes, you wanna go skate the track right now and go test it out?
His smile literally went from ear to ear when he heard those words.
Once he said that, I was like, they're gonna let us do it. So that was really, really cool on the Homestead Speedway's part to really kind of take us in and allow us to get on that track and do it.
Are we ready?
We got to the point of the day of the race.
The Homestead Miami Speedway was called the 24-hour UltraSkate, and it was organized to break the world record for distance traveled on a skateboard.
And Andy is on pace the entire time.
A firefighter named Andrew Andrus of Miami-Dade County went 261.8 miles in 24 hours.
Andy breaks the world record.
I finished with 261 miles, so I broke the world record by, 11 miles. Kind of got dubbed the machine, which being from Spain, they instantly turned into La Máquina.
A month later, we're featured in the coast-to-coast section of Sport Business Journal.
And that was it. I mean, from there on, it's like we've been, hosting it at this track. It's just getting, bigger and bigger, and, we get more competition, and more people getting serious and training hard for it, and everybody's going at it. Once I broke the world record with the 261, I felt at that performance I left mileage on the course. So the following year, the world record went to 283. It was something I was just very proud of, but at the same time, I wasn't sure where could we go from there, because that one kind of felt like, I laid out a pretty hard attempt on that one.
I think to push for 300, I'm not going to say I don't see it happening. I don't want to be like negative about it or anything like that.
As far as 300 goes, I think it's waiting a couple more years.
To me, 300 miles sits somewhere between the Loch Ness Monster and Sasquatch. It doesn't really exist. Everybody says they've kind of maybe seen it or whatever, but no.
300 miles is kind of our joke. It's a long way away from getting to 300 miles.
But they're like, oh, go for 300 miles, 300 miles. Oh, I'm going to go. You got people on Facebook saying, I'm going to do 300 miles and beat Andrew Andrus' record and stuff. I'm going to beat La Máquina.
I don't know, if that'll ever happen. I don't know if a body can do that. We'll see.
We had Harrison, who was young and up-and-comer. Kyle, you know, out of New York, who was a very solid skater, had been skating in the IDSA tour and winning lots of events and was coming into his own. You have Rick Pronk coming over from the Netherlands that cones a world record with me. You had Eric Palmer, who has been at all these ultras and has constantly been in the mix of things. It was kind of a little magical moment where it all just seemed to come together for this quest for 300 to be met.
So much of the UltraSkate is mental. You know, you just have to get pushed through the difficult times and the quiet times when nobody's out there.
You know what, you never really know how fit you are until you get out there. And it's 24 hours and it comes down to, bottom line, no matter how fit you are, it's mental. If you're not mentally strong, then you're done by hour 4.
I'm always intrigued to pushing myself and like going to that hard place where it's like I always say the skeletons start coming out of your closet in the middle of the night, you know, and you're kind of fighting your own inner demons of like, you know, the body wanting to quit, tricking the mind trying to do everything it possibly can to tell you to stop, that, you know, that it's unnatural to go past your sleep circadian, you know, to try to trick yourself and your mind, even trying to trick your own body. So those are all very interesting to me.
During the race, if I'm really hurting, I'll say, dude, this is only 24 hours of your life. Are you gonna give up? Why not give it your best and go as hard as you can? That's like one of my little mottos I go by, you know? And then sometimes you kind of dig the pain a little bit. It doesn't the next day because you can barely walk the next day.
You're tired and your legs are all sore and you got to skate for like 3 or 4 hours left, and that's where you got to say, I'm doing it or I'm quitting it. And that thing is key to the last few kilometers or miles.
Someone just told me, if you want to do well, you're gonna have to suffer. And that's really what it came down to, is I had to be able to embrace, I'm gonna have to be in pain, and it's gonna hurt, and you have to be okay with that. You gotta just grit your teeth and do it, and you know that it's gonna pay off afterwards.
For me, it's just, I'm out there to do my race, have my goal, and just do my skate. If I got caught up in, you know, so-and-so's way faster, they passed me 4 times or something, forget it, I'm not even gonna last 10 hours. It makes it a challenge, but it also makes me be successful, I think.
You'll find guys passed out, not being able to move, cramping up intensively.
What am I doing? This is crazy.
Crazy, horrifyingly painful hours.
This is brutal.
That's a good question, because I asked myself that right in the middle of the race. Why am I doing this? Yeah, I think everybody does.
This is the last year I'm doing this. This is the last year. Every year it's the last year I'm doing this.
He was hurting and he stopped for 5 minutes. I was massaging his legs. I said, buddy, you've done great, you can quit. He said, no quitting, no crying. Crazy.
Yeah, Andy's got his nutrition pretty dialed in at this stage. He's got some secret formula of powder that I don't know exactly what it is.
So Conan, a lot of people drink the whole time. He doesn't do that. He actually eats solid foods.
There's all kinds of other little goodies when you're skating for 24 hours. Things like going to the bathroom. You don't stop to do that, so you've got this, and he's got a little special area down the road that he set up of a trash can to drop the pee bags. Pretty nice.
I didn't have a squad that came with me. Other people, they brought their families, they brought their friends to hand them things out. I was totally alone.
It got pretty fast in the night. Andy he was kind of the slave driver for a time.
I think pretty early, Andy had asserted his dominance. And I think that kind of gets to you mentally.
And Harrison was like, yo, this is crazy.
And Rick Pronk, like every 20 minutes would say, so when are we slowing down? And then Andy would just be like, you know, I kind of want to just stay at this pace and see what happens.
Had my mileage set and, you know, or my pace set and everything, and I knew something in the realm of, you know, 7 minutes a lap over there at the Homestead Speedway.
The lead pack was going so fast that I kept pushing faster and faster. I'd like look back at them, I'd be like, man, they're still right there. Like, why is everybody going so fast?
You know, when they whoosh past you, you're getting a little bit of a boost. I knew I couldn't get into that wind tunnel because that train was moving so much faster.
If I wanted to last the whole 24 hours, I need to slow my pace down, let those guys do what they were doing, hope some of them would wear out. Some of them wore out a little bit, but not enough. Yeah, they were just, those guys were crazy. They were going so fast.
He found something that he could find passion in. And when he goes out there and he accomplishes the seemingly impossible, okay? It's just, it's very emotional for me.
We know we're not getting 300. We were all saying that.
I really tried to keep them motivated and be like, yo, it's gonna pass, keep going, keep going.
And he was like, it's not happening. You know, at hour 18, we're all gonna pay for this and we're all gonna be cuddling in my tent.
Once that seed is planted, that you're just, you know, your body's crushed and you kind of bonk like that, it's over, so.
Happened to Rick.
You're feeling like really horrible because you really want to skate for the 24 hours. Even if you're not breaking your personal record or something, you just want the 24 hours to be skated, and quitting just before that, it's not what you expect to happen.
So it kind of was a dark moment for me when I realized Rick had hit a wall and kind of bonked, but at the same time, I had to keep going, you know? I was on pace. It was, you know, it was all settling. Everybody else was starting to pour back from, you know, from the pace that we still needed to keep.
To think like this 300 pace has taken him out, I was just like kind of waiting for everyone else to drop, including myself.
First one dropped, then another, then it was just like me and Andy.
During the race, at that point, I really don't know what everybody else is doing. Kind of reverted back to my old mentality of, let me just live within myself. I know my lap time, I know what I gotta do, and you know, and I was kind of afraid that at any moment I was just gonna kind of crumble down and completely fall off my pace. And little did I know that a couple laps back was Eric, and he was still on pace.
I was ahead by 14 miles on the person who was in second, so I decided to take a nap. And so I said, okay, if I nap for 20 minutes, there's no way they can come up with 14 miles.
I think there were 2 hours left to go in the race, and my husband Jeff said, I think you're gonna place. And I'm like, no way, really? And I said, okay, so I kept skating.
So I ended up sleeping under a running car to keep myself warm. And I slept for an hour maybe.
And then there was about an hour to go, and he said, you're in first place. And I just was stunned. And I finished out a few more laps, and then finally, this is the first time I asked him a question. I said, well, what's my lead? And he said, 13 miles. I'm like, yes, I'm gonna win. No one's gonna catch me now. Because there was only half an hour left, and then I couldn't believe it. I was just in such shock.
I had to go and defend second place. So I had like an hour and a half where I just had to really put it in. And everyone's like, come on, Callie, like you can do it. And I'm like, no, I can't.
Eventually, like, he got some crazy second wins, maybe because he knew he was gonna break 300.
And he started putting in these crazy attacks, like doing like marathon efforts.
What was the saying? It was a Prefontaine saying. Somebody's gonna beat me, they're gonna have to bleed to do it, you know?
We just did whatever we could to keep moving and driving for 300.
If you want the rite of passage to be the world record holder, it's not gonna be some simple little ride in the park for 24 hours. You're gonna really have to like punish yourself to do it. To hit that 300-mile mark is kind of like a life lesson in pursuit and dedication, a bookmark in a section of my life that was special and amazing. It wasn't until I crossed the line and I was done that I realized that, wow, Eric is going to accomplish the 300 mark, which I think was pretty special. Now all of a sudden we were there, so it showed the progression as athletes and as humans in this sport.
I'm glad it happened this year because people didn't see it coming for a few more years.
It's not a fluke, you know? It's a mark that we're hitting.
It's an attainable bar now.
trying to let it all soak in.
Yeah, bro.
It's the weirdest feeling is actually stopping, you know? Being moving for so long, for 24 hours, you forget what it is to even stop. How we are in the sport, we're serious about our competition, you know? But at the same time, it's not like I have to beat you, you know, or I don't have the ego that it's like I have to be number one. You work just as hard as I did, and we're pretty much equal. We're in the golden age, in the infancy of the sport, where we're just like, the ones there are kind of setting the vibe and setting the pace. Yes, we're racing, and yeah, we're serious about it, but man, we're having fun too, because that's kind of what it's all about in the end, you know? I see myself doing distance skateboarding till I'm an old man, and I have no idea what the future brings, but all you can do is just push 1 foot at a time and see what happens.
Let's cut, yeah?
May I introduce you to the rightful heir to the crown now? Mr. 500 kilometers, a distance that only a year ago wasn't even in our minds. And then here you go. It's amazing. I think he's the right guy to carry it along, and he did it.